Picture this. It's 15,000 years ago. A woman sits alone at the edge of a flickering fire, gnawing on a bone. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the light, eyes are watching her. Not human eyes, wolf eyes. She doesn't run. She doesn't throw her spear. Instead, almost without thinking, she tosses a scrap of meat into the shadows. That single, tiny decision, when one moment of curiosity, instead of fear, may have changed the entire course of human history, because that wolf didn't attack. It came a little closer. The next night it came again, and somewhere across hundreds of generations, that hesitant, food-stealing wolf became a dog, your dog, the one sleeping on your couch right now. But here's the question nobody really stops to ask. How did early humans know this would work? They had no science, no genetics, no understanding of behavior or breeding. They couldn't have known that a wolf could become a golden retriever, or that a wild aurochs could become a milk-producing cow, or that a skittish wild boar could become a pig that headbutts you for belly rubs. Out of millions of species on this planet, only about 14 large mammals were ever successfully domesticated in all of human history. Not hundreds, not dozens, 14. Meanwhile, humans tried and failed to domesticate zebras, gazelles, antelopes, and even hyenas. So what made a wolf yes and a zebra no? What made a wild grass turn into wheat? But never made an oak tree turn into a food crop no matter how hard we tried? This is not just a story about animals. This is a story about the invisible filter our ancestors ran the entire animal kingdom through, a filter so effective, so precise, that modern scientists are still trying to fully decode it. Here's a fact that will change how you see your pets forever. Early humans likely didn't domesticate animals on purpose. Not at first. There was no 5-year plan, no farming strategy meeting around the fire. Domestication, in most cases, wasn't something humans did. It was something that happened, almost by accident, through thousands of small, repeated interactions between two species sizing each other up. Think about that. Your dog exists because a Stone Age human didn't kill a hungry wolf. Your morning glass of milk exists because someone, thousands of years ago, was brave and or desperate enough to sit beside a 2,000-pound wild ox and take a risk. And the wildest part? Anthropologists believe our ancestors were running a kind of instinctive risk assessment, test on every animal they encountered, testing temperament, diet, social structure, and fear response long before words, like genetics or behavioral science, ever existed. So how did they actually know? Was it trial and error? Was it luck? Or did early humans understand something about animals and about survival that we've completely lost touch with in the modern world? Let's fast forward to the 1950s, Siberia. A Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev starts one of the strangest experiments in scientific history. He takes wild silver foxes, aggressive, dangerous, nothing like a pet, and breeds only the calmest ones with each other, generation after generation. Within just a few generations, something extraordinary happens. The foxes don't just become friendlier, their ears start to flop. Their tails start to curl. Their fur develops patches of white. They start whimpering for attention and wagging their tails when a human walks by. Belyaev hadn't just bred calmer foxes. He had accidentally recreated in real time the exact process our ancestors may have stumbled into thousands of years ago with wolves. Scientists call this domestication syndrome. A strange biological package, deal where selecting for one trait, tameness, drags along a dozen others. Floppy ears, patchy coats, smaller teeth, curlier tails, even smaller brains. This tells us something huge. Early humans weren't selecting for cute animals. They were selecting for calm ones, and calmness turned out to be a genetic gateway drug to everything else. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. In the 1990s, biologist Jared Diamond proposed something called the Anna Karenina principle, borrowed from Tolstoy's famous line that happy families are all alike, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Diamond argued domesticable animals are all happy, meaning successful, in the same 6 ways, but every failed candidate fails differently. To be domesticated, an animal essentially had to pass 6 brutal tests. First, diet. It had to eat things humans could easily provide, not need to hunt other animals like a carnivore. Second, growth rate. It had to grow fast enough to be worth raising, unlike, say, an elephant that takes over a decade to mature. Third, breeding in captivity. Some animals, like cheetahs, simply refuse to mate when they're not free, no matter what you do. Fourth, temperament. This is where zebras famously failed. Despite looking like African horses, zebras are notoriously aggressive, unpredictable, and prone to biting and never letting go, actually injuring more zookeepers than tigers do. Fifth, a tendency not to panic. Deer and gazelles are flight animals wired to bolt at the smallest threat, making them nearly impossible to herd or contain. And sixth, social structure. This is arguably the most important one. Animals that live in structured herds with a dominant leader, like wolves, horses, goats, and cattle, already have a built-in instinct to follow a hierarchy. Humans simply had to insert themselves at the top of that hierarchy, becoming the alpha the animal was already wired to obey. This is why cats are the strange exception in this story. Cats weren't domesticated by us commanding them. They domesticated themselves, wandering into early grain stores around 10,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent to hunt mice, and slowly tolerating humans because we brought free rodents. Cats never fully needed our hierarchy, which, if you own a cat, explains everything. So early humans weren't running scientific experiments. They were running thousands of years of accidental behavioral trials, and animals with the right psychological wiring passed the test, while every other species, no matter how strong or useful, silently failed. Here's the truth that should genuinely unsettle you. Domestication wasn't really about animals becoming tamer. It was about a relationship being negotiated between two species, generation after generation, where both sides changed. Because here's the twist scientists rarely mention. Humans got domesticated too. Think about it. Living alongside animals reshaped human society, just as much as it reshaped animal biology. Once humans had cattle and goats providing steady milk and meat, populations exploded. Villages formed. Villages became cities. Farming animals meant humans didn't have to spend all day hunting, which freed up time for something new. Specialization. Some people became tool makers. Others became builders. Others became leaders. The domestication of animals is arguably the root of civilization itself, but it also came with a dark side rarely covered in the highlight reel of human progress. Living in close quarters with domesticated animals exposed humans to entirely new diseases. Measles likely jumped from cattle. Influenza has roots in domesticated birds and pigs. Even the plague has ties to domesticated rodent-adjacent environments. Some researchers argue that roughly 60% of all infectious diseases in human history trace back, directly or indirectly, to our animal partnerships. The same wolves turned dogs and oxen turned cattle that built civilization also nearly wiped it out more than once. And this brings us to a modern mystery that scientists are still chasing today. Why did domestication basically stop? We haven't successfully domesticated a major new species in thousands of years. Zebras are still wild. Moose are still wild. Elephants can be tamed, individually but never truly, domesticated as a breeding population. Some researchers believe every easy animal on Earth was already claimed thousands of years ago, that we picked the low-hanging fruit of the animal kingdom, and everything left simply doesn't have the right psychological or biological wiring. Modern genetics is now rewriting even more of this story. DNA studies published in recent years suggest dog domestication may have happened not once, but potentially in two separate populations of wolves on opposite sides of Eurasia, meaning humans and wolves may have found their way to each other more than once, independently thousands of miles apart. That's not a coincidence. That's two different groups of ancient humans running the exact same instinctive experiment without knowing the other existed, and arriving at the exact same answer. So what does this mean for you scrolling through this video today? The dog curled up next to you, the leather on your shoes, the milk in your fridge, the eggs in your breakfast. None of it exists because of a plan. It exists because thousands of years ago, scattered humans across the globe were quietly, instinctively reading animal behavior, testing trust in small moments, one thrown scrap of meat, one calm approach, one generation at a time. We didn't just domesticate animals. We built an ancient, invisible contract with them, one written not in language, but in patience, risk, and trust. And whether you realize it or not, every time your dog looks at you and waits for a command, you're witnessing the final chapter of a story that started around a fire, thousands of years before anyone knew how to write it down. If this made you see your pets differently, hit subscribe, because next time, we're diving into the one domestication story stranger than all of them, how humans tamed fire itself.